Warning. This program contains strong language, auditory violence, and mental nudity. It is intended only for mature audiences. Listener discretion is advised. Welcome one, welcome all to a special edition of the Unshackled Fury podcast, your uncensored home for all things Warcraft. This week we are doing something a little different. You could call it a special, you could call it a book club, but whatever it is, tonight we are doing a full-on, spoilerific review of the brand new Battle for Azeroth pre-expansion novel, Before the Storm, by longtime Warcraft author and now Blizzard employee, Christie Golden. Of course, I can't dive into this 100% pure, uncut brick of lore insanity alone, so with me, as always, is the Gen to my Anduin. He is Navox. Welcome to the fireside, my friend.
I was trying to think of something witty that Gen would say. It was probably something along the lines of, Anduin, you don't know what you're talking about, or something like that, or, you know how he is. But, yeah, I really enjoyed this book, despite all the horde tiers that are out there, like, where's my novel? But, yeah, I thought it was... really, really well done book, you know?
If you're on the Horde side, this might be a rough one.
Sorry.
Sylvanas
is who it is. Yeah, sorry, not sorry. Exactly.
Sorry, not sorry. Yeah. I guess, we're going to go through. So tonight, we're going to go through and kind of talk about the main threads that go through the book. Some of our thoughts on... not just what happens, but kind of what we think worked, didn't work, what we liked, didn't like, all that kind of jazz. But I want to start off with the last line of the book, which I think perfectly encapsulates everything, which is, I believe, said Anduin Lane-Rin, that Sylvanas Windrunner is well and truly lost. That's all you need to know.
Yeah.
That's it. Review done.
That's it. Review done. So
review done.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about this, but you and I have been talking off and on over the last week or so. Now, mind you, I'd like to point out to our dear listeners that this is a labor of love, right? This show, we're not plugged into the pipeline. We're not,
right.
Obviously we're not doing a lot of giveaways, as you can see. We're just two guys doing our thing, loving on Warcraft, being a part of the show here.
Yeah.
So, we did not get a copy of this book early, or there was no sneak preview for us. So, I just want it to be said that you and I both read this book in like the matter of days.
That's right. Yep.
Like, we did it, man.
Thanks to Amazon getting it here same day that it was released. That was awesome. Same day. Went back to its roots with Amazon.
And now for you, this has got to be a first, right? This is the first time that you've gotten a book, a Warcraft book, in time, when it was relevant, and just hammered on the thing.
That's true. Yes, that is true. And
what was your first experience like diving into such a thick piece of lore right in between the expansions?
I really. I really enjoyed it, actually. It was what's nice is I kind of cheated, though, because there was a 97-page on Amazon prior to the sale. They did it was I think it was 97 pages, and then there were some reviews out there on YouTube that I got to see, like the people who read it early got, so I kind of knew what was going on and what was happening, because I remember talking to you about it. I'm like, oh my God, did you see what happened? You're like, no, don't tell me anything. I haven't read the book yet.
That's right.
I don't care about spoilers so much, but I understand, wanting certain things.
I want to experience it in real time.
Right. But yeah, so this is actually a really good transition to what's the events that are happening in Battle for Azeroth. Now, I'm trying to figure out, did all of this take place? Did all of this the timeline is a little confusing to me, because we're in beta and we're able to see some things that happen in beta. So the sword is still out there in Silithus, and this takes place right at the cutscene of that everybody gets to see currently, where Matthias Shaw hands Anduin the Azerite, and he's like, "What is this?" and go down to Silithus and investigate. So the timeline is it's kind of interweaves. Actually, I guess it kind of interweaves perfectly with the way the game is right now. So
yeah, it pretty much picks up right at the end of Legion, because it incorporates those cinematics that we saw where Anduin is giving that speech at Varian's tomb, and Matthias Shaw and all of those folks are together in Stormwind, and then there's also that big celebratory dinner that they have in Orgrimmar, where Great Prince Gallywix is doing his thing and getting into Sylvanas' sort of good graces by showing her what's going on down there in Silithus.
Gallywix. I know that I know that he's the biggest shitbag, and he is just he is. But he reminds me of he reminds me of the Ferengi or something like that from Star Trek.
Very much so.
I
driven by greed.
Loved that.
Not evil, just money hungry.
He's money hungry, but that's what he's about. I don't think he's got loyalty to the Horde. He's just got loyalty to himself, and that's, But I didn't mean to jump tracks right there. We can go back and do this in order here. I didn't want to.
No, I think that's perfect, because this, to your question, this book picks up essentially where we leave off in Legion and leaves time for what happens in the pre-patch.
Yeah.
Pre-patch. What happens in the pre-expansion patch, where whatever happens to our artifacts happens to our artifacts. Whatever happens to the sword in Silithus happens down there. The burning of Teldrassil, all of that stuff. We don't see any of that in this book.
No.
There's nothing about that in this book, so if you're wondering where in time this book covers, it's right at the end of Legion, and for a period of, I don't know, maybe months afterwards, perhaps, but it doesn't cover what happens in Teldrassil. It doesn't cover anything that happens in Lordaeron with that battle. So there's time for that to breathe in game, so you don't have to worry about any of that being spoiled. That's still going to be a surprise for us, which I always really liked about these novels. And you and I have talked about this before, where kind of the complaint is, well, I have to go to a book to learn all of the stuff that I need to know in order to understand what's going on in the game. But honestly, I think it's a great filler to kind of give another layer to what we're already going to see. Because you could jump from Legion into Battle for Azeroth, and you have a sense of what's going on. But what we're going to talk about here now really gives you a whole other layer of context to where we're going, perhaps, and why.
It also lays the ground, the foundation of why. People are like, oh, why are we so hell bent on Sylvanas being a bad person, this, that, and the other? We'll read the book, because she is a really bad person. Like that, she's the
you'll
bad.
Know.
Yeah, you'll know. It's yeah.
So let's go down that road.
Yeah, let's dive in there.
So essentially, what Before the Storm covers are three kind of main story threads that interweave throughout the book. One is essentially about Anduin and his journey. One is about Sylvanas and her journey. And the third is about this goblin gnome husband and wife, ex-husband, ex-wife team.
That couple, yes.
That couple and their experimentations with Azerite, which more than anything probably serves as a vehicle to tell us and describe to us, the player, what Azerite is, the power and potential that it holds, and how it is that we come to be able to use that at a certain point. But all of this starts off with the resurrected, or at least now mobile, Magni, who has now reappeared on the scene, has been around for a little while, as the Speaker of Azeroth. And essentially what happens early on in the book is that he's going around to all of the factions now as essentially a neutral party. Yes, he was the king of Ironforge at one point and the king of the dwarves, but now he speaks for the planet itself, and he's out there spreading the word saying Azeroth is dying. This isn't like what's happened in the past. This sword, when Sargeras plunged it down into the planet, really did some serious damage, and where Azeroth has the ability to heal, this is beyond its ability. And now the races of Azeroth are going to have to figure out a way to help the planet heal.
Right.
And what he's doing is going around and saying, listen, you got whoever you got, send them down there. We got to figure it out, and we got to figure it out fast.
Yeah.
Because things are going downhill. And I think you can speak to this. The way that Anduin looks at this and the way that Sylvanas and perhaps Gallywix looks at this situation, two completely different perspectives.
Yeah, so Anduin is approaching it from his he's taking the priest stance. He's looking at when Matthias hands him the Azerite, he takes it in his hand and he realizes that there's so much potential here for the healing potential, the peace, being able to use it for peace and go down the quote unquote, good path with it, where Sylvanas sees it and she's immediately like, well, we can weaponize this and we can destroy the Alliance with it eventually. So obviously Anduin's taking the stance of he's still young. He's very optimistic about everything. I think they said he was 18 in the book, right? That's how old he is in the book at this point.
18 to 20, I think he's somewhere in that range.
Yeah, so
but he's only been the king for a very short period of time. I mean, if you think about the events that have occurred, I mean, Varian's only been dead for a little while.
Right. Yeah, Varian's only been dead for a little bit, and Gen's been kind of, taking Anduin as a surrogate son under his wing and trying to help him and guide him as best as he can. Albeit there was some frustrating moments there between Anduin and Gen that really got to me too. But
and what were those? Which ones were those?
No. I mean, it's just like, later on in the book when he was talking about Anduin kept wanting to press the situation with the Forsaken and Gen not wanting to go down that path and Gen warning him about Sylvanas, and Anduin's like, no, I kind of, I want to go with my gut. I feel like things are going to be different than what you say. And they don't, and the only thing that turned out different was the fact that in the end that Gen had a change of heart in where his friend Alonzus Fowl was concerned, where there was that point in the book where actually, okay, so I know I'm jumping ahead though, but there was a point in the book where Anduin brings Alonzus to the cathedral, and he dresses him up in the archbishop robes, and it was the only way that you could actually tell that this was who this person was, and he woke Tyrion and I'm sorry, was that right? It was Tyrion and Gen brought those two in. Turalyon. I'm sorry. Yes, my bad. Turalyon. Too many T's. Paladins that are T's. Where they brought them into the cathedral, and again just didn't want to have anything to do with it. And Anduin kept pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing, and finally that was the point where he pushed Gen over pushed him past his point of comfort, and Gen went running off. But I don't know, it's just Anduin's got his advisors, but he doesn't really, it sounds to me like he doesn't really want to take some of the advice, but I understand, the driving path of him wanting to have peace around, Azeroth, but there's a lot of things that are taking place, and Sylvanas keeps posturing in a way that she's not ready to go to war, but she's gearing up for it. Telling her and Bane, oh my God, that thing with, I know I'm jumping all over the place, but the scene with Bane where she's like, Bane, let me speak to you when they're in Thunder Bluff, when Magni goes to visit them in Thunder Bluff, and she says, Bane, let's go meet. So they meet out on the bridge. Now, Christie Golden does a fantastic job of making you go, oh my God, this person's about to die, because she sets up the scene where Sylvanas meets Bane in the middle of one of those bridges. And you've been to Thunder Bluff, so you understand how high up it is, and you understand that they have the rope bridges and they're meeting out on there. I'm like, oh, she's gonna toss him over the bridge, but that doesn't happen. So, but yeah, I guess we were again. I spiral myself off the rails here. So,
all right, so I'll bring it back here.
Bring it back in. Yeah, bring it back.
So I'll bring it back in. So what you're talking about, the couple of things that you touched on here. Let's go back. Kind of the two sort of paths that Anduin is walking down. One is that he's inspired by a couple of things in this book. The first being is that he finally goes to the class hall for priests. He goes to the Netherlight Temple, where he sees Archbishop Alonsus Fowl and, among other people, Callia Menethil, the sister of Arthas, who, unless you played a priest, which I didn't in Legion, I didn't know that she was even in there. So she's been back. Either. She's been around a little bit. But when he goes there, he sees for the first time how there is no race. There is no anything. There's no factions. It's just priests. They're just there as priests. And
wagging their light around.
Along.
Yeah.
Throwing the light around like it's nobody's business. And in particular, he is struck by the presence of the Forsaken and how, from the Alliance perspective, from a human perspective, what do you know about the Forsaken? That they are the Scourge. They're the mindless, risen, zombified versions of the people that they love. And to what you were talking about, that's one of the biggest issues that Gen, Turalian, a lot of Alliance members have, is they look at the Forsaken and they say, these are monsters, these are animals, these are not the same people. And what Anduin comes to realize, and what he tries to push throughout this book, is the idea that, no, these are the same people. They're just transitioned. They're just different form than what you recognize. And what he's inspired to do, and this is kind of where the whole book leads to, is he creates a one-day ceasefire.
Yes.
Where people that have been vetted by both factions, people that agree to meet, can meet their family members from the Alliance side, from the Horde side, from the Forsaken in particular. In fact, I believe that they don't even have at the meeting Horde or Alliance banners. It's the banners of Stormwind and it's the banners of the Forsaken. Like, this isn't even a faction thing.
I thought it was. I thought that they were going to put. I thought how it was set up, if I recall, they were going to put the Alliance and Horde banners across the center point in the Arathi Highlands.
I don't think they even used the faction banners. I think it's specific to the Forsaken, because for Sylvanas, to touch on her for a bit, her whole thing is about the preservation of the Forsaken, and this book makes that crystal clear, is that her main driving force is not necessarily to be the leader of the Horde. Like, I don't know how much she's even really sold on that whole idea. She's, she doesn't like Bane. She's going to kill him as soon as he hints at possibly turning on her. Gallywix annoys her. All she wants to do is try to still find somebody to install for the trolls to, just manipulate them all that she can. She's constantly scheming and planning on how to get in on all these people and to, get over on them, really. But for Anduin, the whole book really is to look at this as a time when you're coming out of this war with the Legion. Great cost on both sides. This is an opportunity to do something during a time of peace that could really be impactful, that could really be meaningful. And for the first time, I think Warcraft takes a very serious look at what is it to be Forsaken? What is it to be risen in this environment? What does that even mean? What does that look like? And Christie Golden does a phenomenal job of describing sort of the state of the undead. What they look like, what they smell like, what they, move like and sound like. And all of these great descriptions, which, I'll be honest, that's not something I've ever really thought about.
Yeah, me either.
So for her to bring that in now as, okay, let's say some family member of mine was killed. It was a wife. It was a child. It was, because you have these situations,
right,
a father,
yep.
any one of these people. Would I want to meet them? Would I want to meet this person? Would I want to come to grips with the fact that potentially they're mostly, at least cerebrally, intact enough to still be the person that they were coming through on the other side of this transition? And this book does a phenomenal job of really confronting how people would address that situation. And it's, you know, it's true in real life, where you're confronted with family members that things about them may have changed, circumstances may have changed, and how do I feel about that person now? Do I want to know that person? Do I want to hug that person? Do I want to have that person involved in my life? It's a very real-world example of something that is translated into game in a way that I don't think I've ever seen before, and I thought it was handled just beautifully.
Yeah, I thought it was too, because at no point have I ever, like, I've leveled a I've made a Forsaken rogue. I leveled a Forsaken rogue back in the day just because I wanted to play horde. I want to play rogue. I thought it'd be cool to just make an undead, rogue. I didn't think anything of it back in the day, other than, hey, we're the bad guys. We're the horde. We're the bad guys. This is what we do, and this, that, and the other. But I thought it was really well done, where you brought the human factor into the Forsaken, and it was, parts of it was really sad, like how they were talking about, they can't get out of the mindset that they're still trying to adapt to being undead. For example, right. they went into detail of, and I don't necessarily know if this is correct or not. I don't know if I'm remembering things correctly, but Elsie was one of the Desolate Council. She's the lead of the Desolate Council, basically. Mm-hmm. But I believe she was also, and I don't, maybe this is not right. Maybe this was some other character, so excuse me if I get it wrong. But she was supposedly they get tasks. I look at the Forsaken like they're trying to figure out what to do. They don't need to sleep, so they all have these jobs that they do to support the whole community. So her job, I believe, was to, preserve body parts to sew on to the Forsaken that lose them. Right, yeah. And it was the blacksmith. That one really, I don't know why that one, I felt really bad for this one, because, he was a blacksmith. He ended up hurting the hand that he had. And then when he was talking to her, he's like, well, when you sew back on, she's like, you need to take it easy with it. He's like, well, I'll just go work it out, and eventually, it'll get calloused, it'll get better. And she's like, it won't, because it doesn't heal like that. You don't, so it's,
you don't have a cardiovascular system
exactly
anymore.
You don't have a cardiovascular system anymore. So the hand's not going to grow back. It's not going to get calloused. It's not going to do anything. It is what it is. So, you have to make do with what you have. So yeah, it was a very humane way to make you feel for these undead creatures.
Absolutely. Well, again, it's bringing, a real world perspective to something in fantasy that we generally just kind of take for granted. I mean, you hear Sylvanas out there saying, I have to find a way to get more of my people, and I still think that she's going down some kind of Lich Queen-esque path, because a lot of her tactics are the same. Mm-hmm. I'm going to kill these folks, and then I'm going to raise them for my own army. I mean, that was the whole point of Icecrown Citadel. Right, right. It was, I'm going to get the best people you have up here to the top of the Citadel, then I'm going to kill them, and I'm going to make them my champions. I mean, Sylvanas is kind of talking about in this book employing the same strategy, where at the very beginning, they, and by they, I mean her and her, boyfriend, lover, male companion, Nathanos,
who was real tamed down in this story.
He was. Yeah, I was expecting a little more from him, but I'm sure he'll have plenty to do.
This was Nathanos at a 5. We're usually used to him at a 10, so it's like.
But both of them right away are looking at how can we invade Stormwind.
Right.
And very early on in the book, it sets the tone that Sylvanas is coming for somebody.
Right.
And she's coming for something for the purpose, again, going back to what we talked about earlier, is if she, gets involved in some of these skirmishes with live humans, she can just res them and, now they're forsaken. Ha ha ha.
Yeah.
And, it allows her people to continue. One of the other sort of real world kind of things, which I thought was really interesting, considering the Forsaken, is the view of, well, you're already dead. You've been resurrected. Now you're in this undead state. But what is the permanent death? Do you have a right to the permanent death? Are you beholden to Sylvanas to remain part of the Forsaken and to stay alive? It's a whole question of choice. And that's something that I think Sylvanas in the book seems to recognize, that she's given her people the power of freedom of choice, but at the same time, she may not necessarily like
their
that
choices.
they have choices.
I know. It's like she went off and she did all they go off and they fight the Burning Legion, and then she goes off on her own quest for her own immortality, and nobody's left back in Lordaeron except this desolate council that forms up because like Jeff Goldblum, life finds a way. They're like, listen, we have to continue on, and our leader's not here. So what do we do? Well, let's form this little council up, and and start governing from within. And nothing bad. They didn't have any ill intentions. They weren't planning to overthrow Sylvanas. It was nothing like that. And at one point in the book, Sylvanas sends Nathanos back, and he's a little perturbed that Alonso was talking to Anduin, but other than that, he didn't see anything wrong with the way they were. And honestly, I think he's also feeling a little bit of the same. I know that he is Sylvanas' champion, but he is also part of the Forsaken. He was raised by Sylvanas, and when we talk about things that happen later, I'm sure that he at some point also has some sort of allegiance to his own kind. You kind of like, he's going.
You mean humans or
no? He's going through his own. He's not human. He's part of the Forsaken at this point, right?
Right.
So he
was human originally.
He's feeling for these Forsaken as well, I think, and that's why he wasn't, totally enraged by the council. And he even reported back to Sylvanas to say, "Hey, look, they're not really that. They're not a threat. It's not a threat. There's nothing sinister going on."
And again, that's one of the veins throughout this whole book, is how Sylvanas sees everyone and everything as a threat.
Yeah. Even
in the Horde. Horde, Alliance, doesn't matter. Everybody's a threat.
There was a lot of, I think the premise of the whole book is surrounded by just life and death, because there's a lot of death in this book. There's a lot of dealing with grief and death in this book. And it's also a celebration of life as well. So,
well, and speaking of that, there is one issue, to touch on one last part about Anduin's journey, that I know I've talked about on this show before, and I'm glad that this book addresses it to some degree, because this is brought up by Anduin's caretaker, who unfortunately passes away in the book.
Oh, that's so sad.
And Gen, who repeatedly brings this up, is that Anduin has no heir.
Yes.
That is something that, when you're dealing with royal lineages, is a big damn deal.
He was driving me nuts with that too, because he didn't want to hear anything Gen had to say about it, and I was like, just listen. And he didn't
you're talking about arranged marriages. And,
I know.
As somebody who, Anduin's in touch with his feelings, man, and I think that he is somebody who recognizes that, given the opportunity, he'd rather marry for love if he can. But at the same time, I think that he does understand that if something happens to him,
Gen offers up his daughter too. He's like, my daughter.
Oh, Gen.
If you're down with some furry,
she wasn't. No, she would not be too happy with that.
If you're down with the whole werewolf thing, if you're cool with that.
Yeah, that might make for some interesting times. Now, in that vein, there is one character who comes up in the book who I think presents an interesting option. Maybe this is just a red herring, but Valera Sanguinar, who
yes,
pops up. She is somebody who was friends with Varian. If you go back to when he was Logosh in his gladiator days, she knows him from way back then. She's been a friend of the family. She is now Anduin's personal spy, as a blood elf rogue. That's pretty handy. She is not aligned technically with the Horde, which I think is an important point to make. She is just her own person. She's not allegiant to anyone except perhaps Anduin. And she seems to be kind of like the right age, so a pairing between Anduin and a blood elf would be, that'd be a pretty gutsy choice.
Yeah, I mean,
who else is there that we know of?
Nobody. I was actually gonna say, there's somebody in the beta, but yeah. So I don't know. I mean, that's a good idea for Valera, but I kind of think she enjoys her lifestyle of being this, badass rogue that is this go-between between the Alliance and the Horde. And
well, I think I know who you're talking about, and since we're already doing a bunch of spoilers here, anyway, spoiler on top of a double spoiler, I think we're talking about Bolvar's daughter, right?
Yes.
So, if Bolvar's daughter is of the, relevant age, I don't know. I don't see, as much as I like Warcraft, I don't think Warcraft is progressive enough to have like a 20-year-old king with a 40-year-old queen. I just.
Oh, is she at that age? So
I'm saying I don't know how old she is, but
I got you.
in Before the Storm, Kalia Menethil is around quite a bit, and if you weren't cognizant of age, you might think that she could be a potential match, because one of the big issues in this book is that she is the rightful heir to the seat of Lordaeron, which throughout the whole book I'm thinking, well, shit, I guess maybe that's why we're going to tear down Lordaeron's walls, is to give her back the crown. But then they were talking about how he started, he sees her, or saw her, Anduin did, as more like Aunt Jaina.
Yeah.
And I'm like, unless you're into some really weird, really weird stuff there, I don't think that that's where they're going to go. But yeah, so for Anduin, it's trying to get down and help out in Silithus, follow what Magni has asked for, which is help with the planet. Anduin is overcome with hope by seeing the Netherlight Temple and the fact that, all races can get together under, certain circumstances, and who his heir is going to be. That is touched on a little bit, but really the whole thing is about what is this ceasefire day, bringing the humans and Forsaken together. That's a lot of what his journey ends up being throughout this book. Sylvanas, it's getting down to Silithus, finding out what the goblins can tell her about the Azerite, as we find out when somebody touches the Azerite, suddenly their mind is expanded like they're on some kind of super drug, and they can figure out every possibility for every situation all at once. They know how to fix things or do things, and then they feel super strong, and they feel all of these, really heightened, powers or whatever it is. And so you get a sense of like, holy shit, this Azerite stuff is a big deal.
Yeah.
And she's all about, we have to find a way to weaponize this. And so she ends up putting Gallywix in charge of this, and this is where we sort of get that third storyline that weaves its way through, which is the team, the Azerite team as I call them, Grizik Fizzwrench, who is a goblin, and Saffronetta Flivers, extra points for that name, who are an ex-husband, ex-wife
They were
team.
good. Yeah, that was a good, I thought that was, I liked that. And I thought it was fun. The way Saffronetta is brought into it is the goblins have to kidnap her. So the husband kidnaps his ex-wife, and then they start working together. But the only reason they start working together is because they touch the Azerite and get that whole limitless thing going on in their heads about what we can do with it. And but yeah, that was a good interaction. I don't typically like. I've never played a gnome. I guess I'm not into the gnomish culture, so to say. But I thought it was an interesting storyline because, you see them down there in you see them up in Winter Spring, you see them down in Tenaris and things like that. So it'll be real interesting to see what happens, because we didn't see any of the they were tasked with developing weapons, but they kept developing things that would help people instead. So we haven't seen any of the weapons that were developed, and I think well, I'm jumping ahead. So the two of them get together, they start working together, they start learning that, hey, we still have these feelings for one another, but is it the Azerite that's doing it? And I think it's just the fact that they're getting along, trying to figure out what to do with this stuff. So, and then Gallywix gets involved again at some point, going, hey, I want weapons. Sylvanas wants weapons. I didn't hire you guys to make, stuff to heal people and armor and this, that, and the other. But watching the two little engineers go back and forth with stuff was real fun.
Definitely two races of tinkerers that have been represented in game for sure. And what I thought was really interesting was that as they're going along and experimenting with the Azerite, and they're talking about how it comes out of the ground, it's a liquid, and then once it's exposed to air, it becomes a solid, and it's, nigh indestructible. And they're talking about how they can either make something that makes a poison essentially like a super poison, or it goes the other way around and it's a cure.
Right.
Where, there was this poisonous substance, and Safi ends up like licking the stuff, and Grizzic's freaking out, and she's like, no, it works. And then they're going through that process of figuring out how Azerite has these effects. And then what I thought in particularly for us as players, which I thought was kind of cool, was that they talked about enhancing armor, and they talked about enhancing all of these things. And so you can see where perhaps that explains how we as the players come into this knowledge or this ability to be able to utilize Azerite, is because that knowledge and that ability was gained somewhere by somebody. And ultimately, unfortunately, what happens to these two is they don't make good on the weapons, and they try to escape. They are not successful in their escape, and the goblins end up in possession of whatever items they had left behind, and we are led to believe that these two are done in by some kind of a bomb or grenade, but we don't really know for sure. They just were together, tied together on a chair, trying to get away. A bomb goes off, and then, it's possible they're still out there.
I think we discussed this earlier, and I think you said we don't know for sure, and I think I think they're going to show up at a cutscene, and it's going to be one of those cutscenes where later on down the road, people will post in the forums, who is this goblin and gnome? Why are they showing it? Like, I could just see something happening with a quest line, and all of a sudden the screen goes black, and then it comes back. It fades from black, out, and all of a sudden it's a story of Grizzic and Safi out there, and they're like, hey, are you okay, this, that, and the other? And then it's like, oh, and it'll be a throwback to the people who read the book, and the people who read the book will be like, oh my god, they survived. Because I have a feeling that they did probably create some sort of, because they were experimenting with jewelry and things. So you don't know if they've created something, or if they came up with a coating or something they had on that would have protected them from the explosion. But
I feel like with the goblins obtaining whatever it was that they got at the time of this book, that means the Horde has all of that information. Well, how does the Alliance get all of that information? Somehow that has to transcend to the Alliance side. So I can very easily see where they made it out, or they survived, or one of them did, or their notes are found, or
she
something.
Destroyed all of the work. So Safi destroyed all of their work, because it was mentioned when they were
all
tied
of their
up.
Notes.
All of their notes, all of the stuff. They said,
but there was still like practical stuff.
Right. They said they would have to deconstruct it and try to figure out how they did it. But she destroyed all of the working notes.
Yeah.
So
remains to be seen. But what that third track did for us, at least as players, is give us an idea of setting up in the Warcraft universe how powerful this Azerite stuff is, because even just like a tiny speck of this stuff was making Anduin feel like he was the second coming.
Yeah.
So for us as players, I guess as we're collecting this stuff and becoming more powerful over time, again, it's, listen, it's all part of the game mechanic, but it's trying to, pump it up for us and say, this Azeroth, it's a big deal. You should pay attention. So leading up through all of this, we have Anduin trying to get this one-day ceasefire, get Forsaken and humans together. You've got Sylvanas making moves and trying to figure out, how does this work? She eventually agrees to the one-day meeting under certain circumstances.
All of this coordinated by snail mail, by the way, which is real impressive. Think about that.
Yeah, I mean, you're getting old school scrolls. That's pretty good. It's a pretty reliable mail service out there in Azeroth. Not to denigrate our fine postal workers here. They do a fine job. And just, these are like practically medieval times. So you got to say it's pretty damn good. So through all of this, one of the most interesting characters that gets a lot of time in this book is Kalia Menethil.
Oh my God,
who
yeah.
The shadow of the Menethils runs thick throughout this whole book, which anyone who's listened to this show knows I can never get enough of, and that is totally great because anything about Arthas and the Lich King and yada, 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 I'll eat it with a spoon every day till I'm twice as fat as I already am. So in this book, Kalia gets a lot of time, and part of it is her and the Archbishop Alonzus Fowl and how they have this great relationship and how it shows Anduin, a path forward and how it's possible to be able to do all of these things. But part of it, too, is really who she is and what she feels responsible for, i.e. her brother, Arthas, and how all of this, and again, going back to the real-world implications of this, the Forsaken only exist because of Arthas.
Yeah.
All of this death, all of this destruction, it only exists because of him. And so for her, part of what you get out of this story is that she feels the need to make up for those misdeeds. That if there's some way that she can bring hope and peace and positivity, or whatever you want to call it, to the world of Azeroth, then that is sort of a calling for her.
Mm-hmm.
And on top of that, it's complicated by the fact, especially for Sylvanas, is that she's the true heir to the throne of the Kingdom of Lordaeron. And I know I've called for us as Alliance to be able to try to go in there and get that capital city back, and we can give up something somewhere because got to have a base trade somewhere in there. But I thought it was phenomenal storytelling to weave her throughout all of this story and really pick up on something that hasn't been explored yet, which is the cost of what Arthas has done and who may still be able to make good on that or try to fix that or do something.
And the thing is this, we actually don't have to take, I was going down the road at this point to talk about the end of the book because it has something to do with the fact that you've got the Forsaken and Kalia views the Forsaken as her fallen people of Lordaeron, and how she wanted to be able to care for them and take care of them, and she feels like it's her responsibility. Well, at the end of the book, should we touch on that now?
Yeah, so let's go ahead. So
we'll touch on
the whole
that
book
real
is
quick.
leading up to this one-day ceasefire.
To the one day, yeah.
And go.
Okay, so it leads up to the one-day ceasefire, and both sides have these vetted individuals that aren't scheming, that have been viewed as a non-threat to either side, and that the agreed upon thing was that there were going to be priests from both sides, making sure that the terms of the agreement are in place and being met at all times. Well, Anduin brings Kalia in on this, not knowing that Kalia had some sort of ulterior motive planned in trying to take the Forsaken that are on the field and bring them back to the wall on the Alliance side. And when Sylvanas sees this, she makes an agreement with Anduin that says, "I will not harm a member of the Alliance."
Mhm.
Now, when she said that in the book, I kind of knew where this was going because Kalia Menethil is not a member of... She is not a... I'm sorry. Sylvanas said she would not harm a person of Stormwind, not of the Alliance. It was Stormwind, I believe.
No, I think it was the Alliance. I think
Was
you're
it? Okay, well, because basically what happens is Kalia takes these Forsaken and starts heading towards the wall in Arathi Highlands. Sylvana sees it as they are being traitors and decides to kill all of the family members of the Forsaken and thus ending the Desolate Council altogether. But also she takes out Kalia Menethil because her agreement was that Kalia Menethil was a member of Lordaeron, she was a neutral faction party. She wasn't a member of the Alliance or Stormwind. She was a neutral. She is a neutral faction at this point. So she gets taken out, and then with the help of a Naru and Anduin and Alonzus Fowl, I believe back at the Conclave, they resurrect
the Netherlight Temple.
The Netherlight Temple. They resurrect her.
But she's now not either human or undead.
She's like a light-born Forsaken.
Yeah.
So it's like there's races coming out of this book that may show up in the game at some point. So everybody going, why can't the Forsaken be paladins? Well, there's a light-born priest at this point. That's So anyway, back to the story. So now she is one with her people of Lordaeron. So we don't actually have to take Lordaeron back and put it back to the way it was, because now she's part of the... I mean, for all intent and purposes, she's now undead and part of the Forsaken, but she's Lightborn. So yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if I necessarily read it the same way, and maybe I missed that part. Like, I understood the part about her feeling responsible as the heir to the throne, that these are her people, and that, she wants to care for them and help them, because in her story, she has these nightmares, and she's trying to figure out, how do I no longer have these nightmares? And when she speaks to a Naru, it essentially tells her, you're gonna have to go through some shit first, and then you're gonna find a way through to the other side, which ultimately is her death. But I thought it was more that the members of the Forsaken that were heading back to the Alliance side, I thought that they were simply defecting because they were like, we got to get out of here.
Yeah, that's what Sylvanas thought. But then Sylvanas gunned down the people that were
her own people that even Elsie, who was loyal and going, I'm not going to have any part of this because I'm with the Forsaken. I'm going back to the Forsaken. Sylvanas ends up killing the people, even going back towards Lordaeron. Towards the Forsaken flag. That not all of them. Not all of them, because there were. Remember too, is that part of this is that there were some people on the human side who didn't want to meet their Forsaken family member, whoever it was.
Right.
And so part of the devious situation going on here with Sylvanas is that she's stoking that feeling amongst her people that, see, you're being rejected by them. Here's an opportunity that I have given you, even though I'm being upfront and telling you I don't think it's a good idea. Right. But here they are, they're rejecting you when you were given this opportunity. See, they don't see you as family, but I do. And so there were still some members, I think, of the Desolate Council who were rejected, who came back, who she's now fostering that negativity with to be able to, again, to kind of turn that tide and to continue to maintain that sort of control, where Anduin, to his credit, and this is why, as a character, I was very proud of this character, is that even with Gen in his face, rightfully so, and imagine the horrors that Gen has seen. His son has been killed, his people have been wiped out, the Forsaken have rampaged over his entire kingdom, and he's seen it all, and he's telling Anduin, listen, she's crazy, she's gonna turn on you, something's gonna happen, and Anduin is trying to find a way to peace, and maybe it's the age that we live in, maybe it's the times that are upon us right now, but it's nice for once to read something or to engage in some kind of activity where somebody still has hope that good can prevail, that even when it seems like it's ridiculous to hope for something positive, that you still do it, you still try, you still go through every opportunity to do it. And I think it's easy to say, you know what, Gen, you're right, she is crazy, and maybe we should gun her down. Maybe when we get her out in the open, let's waylay it, go crazy.
And even, well, I know Nathanos disagreed with Sylvanas' call with gunning down her own people. But touching back on Anduin and Gen, I thought it was funny because I have a weird sick sense of humor. And I remember reading the book where there was, in the book, it's like he knew that there were a few he was protecting Kalia out on the field while things were going down. And he was able to shield her using his powers. Because there's a point where Anduin sees all the shit going down, and he jumps on his griffin and runs out on the battlefield trying to save his own people. And he sees Kalia out there, and he keeps running towards Kalia, trying to protect her with a shield while all this is going down. And what I thought in the back of my head was, oh man, because there was a point where it says there was a few heartbeats where she would be vulnerable while he was trying to call on the light and help her, and that's when she ended up getting, killed. It's like, well, he was, susceptible to the GCD that's getting put in place. So
nah. You better put that on the forums. Look what the GCD did.
Kalia
they killed this great
dead.
priest. Kalia Menethil is dead because of you bastards.
No, but so going back to the whole Gen and Anduin, you're right. When we're young, it's nice to think that peace will prevail and this, that, and the other. And the older we get, the more cynical we get, and we get set in our ways to go, these people are this way because. And the one thing that I noticed in the book that wasn't, not once did Gen go, I told you so. Not once. He didn't.
Yeah.
He did not say that once to him. He let him. Gen annoyed the hell out of me in Legion for some reason. I was just like, there were so many opportunities for him to take out Sylvanas, and then he'd have to. He'd be real long-winded about things instead of just, hey, I'm here in the quiet. I could kill her right now. She wouldn't even notice it. Nope. I'm going to announce my entrance, make this grand entrance, and I'm injured now again. I could have just killed her, but. It went from me being annoyed at him to me having a lot of respect for him because he does have a lot of respect for loyalty and respect for the King of Stormwind, and I really can appreciate the loyalty that and the honor that they have for that for the position of leader of the Alliance, which I was trying to figure out. And we touched base on this this afternoon was why is it that Anduin is the leader of the Alliance when Variant fell, when there were so many, like there was Gen and there was I was trying to figure out. I mean, I understand that he's the rightful king of Stormwind, but why is it that Stormwind is the end all be all of the Alliance? That's what I was
my understanding of this is that it comes down to the military.
Okay.
Because it, at least currently, I believe, it's Stormwind's armies that are really the largest contingent when it comes to who's on the battlefield. Now, you have races of all kinds, but one of the things that I remember popping up when Varian was named, he got whatever title it was, I can't remember what it was, but it was basically the commander of the Alliance armies. And people were like, whoa, why is he telling the Night Elves what to do and this and that and blah, blah, blah. And the explanation, I believe, that was given was that he is the commander of the Alliance army or the Alliance, Army, Navy, Marines. I mean, the armed forces of the Alliance, the Stormwind King, I think, is in charge of whatever that force as a whole is. I don't think he's necessarily the leader of the Alliance as a whole. I think it's only when it comes to the military.
Okay.
That's my understanding of it. I could be totally wrong, but I think that that's one of the things that the Alliance has tried to do, or at least they've tried to make the Alliance separate from the Horde in this respect, is that the War Chief is in charge. That's it. The War Chief is in charge of everybody in the Horde, no questions asked, whereas I think the Alliance has been portrayed as we are all, listen, you can debate whether or not this is true, but everybody is an equal partner in the Alliance. All factions have equal representation. There is no one position that dictates to the rest, whereas I feel like in the Horde, the War Chief dictates to all.
Okay.
And so, even though, and that's why you see it in the Battle for Azeroth cinematic is, it's Anduin out there telling everybody what to do, because I think that's militaristic leadership. I think that's where that seat resides.
Okay.
If you get what I'm saying.
Okay.
So that's where we are, and we've had Anduin going on one journey, trying to figure out how to bring peace and hope and all of these things. Sylvanas trying to scheme around all of that to preserve her power. And somewhere in the middle of all this, we have Azerite being dug up and turned into either a force for good or a force for ill. And it all blows up in everyone's face. You have Sylvanas killing her own people. You have Kalia Menethil turned into a light zombie. And now everybody's trying to figure out what in the hell is going to happen next. Now, we as players, we know generally where we're going. We still don't know why, at least. Listen, I haven't seen a bunch of spoilers. Maybe people know. I don't know why Teldrassil gets burned down. I'm pretty sure we go attack Lordaeron in response to that.
Yeah.
But the biggest question that I have going forward, coming out of this book and going forward into the expansion, after the expansion, is how is there any outcome for Sylvanas than becoming a raid boss, as I have long predicted, because she is not redeemable. There is no serious way at this point in the story that you can have her have some kind of revelation that she goes, you know what? I've really been a dick. I think I'm not going to do this anymore, and I'm going to be a good guy.
I actually don't think she's going to be... I don't think she's going to be a raid boss as much as I think she's just going to be a story arc where we will actually see her be taken out, but I honestly don't think we're going to be the ones to do it. I have a feeling that...
you mean like somebody like Gan would finally get his revenge, or Anduin would do it, or something like that?
Actually, I don't think it's... I think it's going to be... I have a feeling it's going to be Illyria. I think Illyria Windrunner is actually going to take out her sister. I think we're going to see the two Windrunner sisters, because Illyria is dealing with that void. We saw in the comic book where she's dealing with this void, and the void is like telling her this person is evil. Like Sylvanas is evil. Kill her. Right. I think Illyria is going to have... I think the void is going to do her in at some point. She's not going to be able to control it. She's going to become also... My personal take on the Void Elves are... I know that everybody's like, oh, why are the Horde painted as the bad guys all the time? Well, I have a feeling that the Void Elves aren't as good as it seems. And I have a feel... my personal take on it is I feel like Illyria Windrunner is probably going to become overcome with this void and what the void is, and eventually she and her sister are going to have it out, and the two of them in a big fashion are probably going to take one another out, and it's going to be that it'll be part of the story arc. But I don't think she's going to be... I don't think Sylvanas will be a raid boss. I don't think they would Garrosh Hellscream Sylvanas again. I mean, that was fun. Yeah. I mean, I had a lot of fun with that raid, but
but even Garrosh survived that, right? Because he went to trial, and it ended up being Thrall who took him out.
Yeah, true.
It's that thing where I remember with Gul'dan, I just assumed the last time we were going to see Gul'dan was in Warlords, but he, kept on living.
Yeah, there's a lot of disarray in the Horde right now. There's no real. Going out on the forums, I can see where the Horde people are like, this is crap. This is Alliance propaganda. The Horde's not getting the love.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so given the story the way it is right now, the Horde does not have a really good central, a stable centralized command. They don't have they have Bane and Seraphine. I mean, other than that, I don't see anybody else there that, and the Blood Elf guy, I forget his name, but
Lorthar Martheron.
Yeah, they don't have the stability like we have with the. I know it doesn't seem like right now we're down Varian. We've just been handed Anduin stepping into position. We have again Greymane. We've got the dwarves and Tyrande and Malfurion. So our heroes are kind of set. Our heroes are kind of set, and they are for better or worse. They are people that we can rely and depend on. The Horde are dealing with like two people that they can rely on, and not. Sylvanas is out for herself. I can see why they feel like they're in disarray at the moment, and it does. It feels like it's very, very chaotic at the moment. Something's going to have to.
There's still no troll leadership.
There's no troll leadership, and things are. And the nice thing is you're having the new Zandalari come out. So I know that I think Ian said in the Q&A that those trolls are the bad dudes, though. He said those guys are total, like, just in the black, totally. Like they are bad dudes. So
well, remember too, and this is, I mean, I know that this is a lot. I'm trying to make a logical argument here, which on the internet is dumb. This is only a snapshot in time.
Yes.
This isn't like the end of the story.
Right. No,
this isn't
no.
the only thing that's going to happen. There is plenty of other stuff to come. There's plenty of story left to tell.
Right.
And Christie Golden's been very adamant about this. And honestly, now that she's actually an employee of Blizzard, she probably knows more than ever about the story, because she's helping create it even outside of the book.
I was going to say, you'll see more of the story arc in game with the cinematics too, as the patches go on. Of course we're going to see some old god action come on, and then there's going to be more old gods, more stuff. I mean, there's a lot of story left to be told, and it's good that Christie Golden's on board, and that I really enjoy her writing style. I like that it's able to pull out emotional responses when I'm reading, and I'm able to put myself in the position, and it draws out emotional feelings when you're reading. I always find like, oh, that's really good that it's able to do that. It's
and it's digestible.
It's digestible, right?
This is not Game of Thrones, and I don't need it to be that.
Right, exactly. I got excited when we were introduced to Anduin in his room, where he's like. He had the box of rings and also the compass that the adventurers brought him, that he obtained from an adventurer, and I'm like, oh, that was me. I did that, and it's like, I got a kick out of that, and it was funny because tonight I was talking to a couple friends and they're all playing. I was like, hey, you want to go run this Mythic Plus that you wanted to run, and they're like, well, I just finished I finished Before the Storm, and I'm actually leveling up my Forsaken Warlock at the moment, because I thought I'd like to go see that side of the story now, and it's kind of interesting that this story is bringing out that kind of, hey, let's go see what's going on the other side. But yeah, all in all, it's really good that she's been brought on as a storyteller, and we're going to see a lot more things develop, especially when the Colterans are, oh my god. I would love to jump ship on this and just talk about all the awesome stuff that's going on in beta at the moment. But we won't do that. But
that'll be for the next show.
That'll be for that.
Speaking of the Colterans, though, and I do want to throw this one final point out, is that we do get very briefly, an appearance by Jaina Proudmoore.
Yeah.
And
she
it does
shows up
happen.
in Dalaran.
We see her in Dalaran. She has a quick little interaction with Caligos. Kind of gives him a hug and a smooch, and says, I'm gonna be out doing my own thing out in the wild. So this book does not touch on her really much at all, even though she's prominent in the coming expansion. This book does not really give her much of anything other than a very brief appearance. So if you're picking this up hoping to learn what she's been doing in the interim period, then this isn't the book for you.
No, go read the comic book. She was out battling the Legion on her own.
There you go. So otherwise, all in all, a fabulous read.
Yeah.
This really pulls together so much of what we love about Warcraft, talking about the factions, characters that we care about, filling in more detail about how they think, their motivations, what's going on in the world. And Christie Golden, again, just knocks it out of the park. And if by any chance, Christie, you happen to listen to the show, because I'm totally going to subtweet you later, we'd love to chat with you about this more, but you are a phenomenal writer. God knows, and I know, we love you to death, and it's such a pleasure to know that there's a steward like you helping guide us all through this. And man, I can't wait to see what comes next. But for you, Nev, any final thoughts before we go tonight?
No, I really enjoyed this book. I can honestly say, if you haven't picked up the book, definitely go pick it up from Amazon or listen to it on Audible, however you like to, get your books. Just, definitely we've got almost 2 months before the expansion comes. Actually, I think we're now, we're almost, we're a little under 2 months away from
2 months.
It'll give you enough time to get through it. It'll get you a little Warcraft fix in between, because God knows I'm bored of logging in and just hitting that table up. But I thought the writing was phenomenal. I really liked the ups and downs of the books. I liked seeing the characters in a different light. I liked seeing the emotional struggle Terralion went through with confronting Alonzus. I enjoyed the human side of it. That we see them as heroes. We see them as when they're in action. You don't get a lot of behind the scenes. You don't get a lot of where oh my God, he is a human being. He has emotions, all this kind of stuff. I like to see character development, and you get a lot with this book. So.
And by the way, if you happen to get the audio version of this, it is done by Josh Keaton, who does the voice of Anduin.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So if you're in the mood, you get double the pleasure.
Cool.
Not only do you get an awesome book, but you'll have Anduin reading you the book. And I haven't heard it yet, but I have heard from trusted sources that it is a phenomenal experience. So I may just pick it up just to listen to it again here in the next couple of months while we have time. So Before the Storm, I mean, if we had a scale, I think I've used Rampaging Griffins as my scale here. I'd give it 10 out of 10 Rampaging Griffins. Can't recommend it enough.
Yeah.
So Before the Storm by Christie Golden. Pick it up on Amazon. Pick it up anywhere that you can find a book. If there's still a bookstore available near you, go ahead and check it out. But honestly, can't say enough about it. Well done, Christie Golden. So that does it for our little fireside book review, and hopefully we'll have more of these in the future. In the meantime, where can the good people find you on the internet, Nav?
Well, you guys can follow me out on Twitter. I am at NAV_OX. What about you?
As for me, you can always find me on Twitter at Berzerker Rage. Feel free to contact the show with your questions, comments, or other feedback at unshackled.fury@gmail.com. And you can find this show on SoundCloud, iTunes, Stitcher, and Google Play. So once again, thank you for listening. Remember to keep your swords wet and your banners high, and we'll catch you next time. Farewell.